inspiring leaders with its on-demand resources, network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations. Search CMI Confidence today.
This session is recorded and will be available on the CMI website and YouTube channel. Join the conversation by using the live chat box for your questions and comments. We'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Inclusive Leadership Unlocking Global Talent Digital event. My name is Samantha, and I am the International Regional Development Officer at CMI. Don't forget to join the conversation by using the live chat box, and we'll answer as many questions as we can during the Q&A. I will now hand over to Kameya Pereira, President of CMI Sri Lanka Board, to begin today's event.
Thank you very much, Samantha, and good afternoon, good evening to all of you joining us on this virtual session today. And today's theme is building up from CMI's 2024 Walking the Walk Managers Inclusivity and Organizational Success Report, which explores how insights are unfolded in the Asia-Pacific region. And that's what we're going to explore today, following the same key themes discussed in the report mentioned, which is navigating resistance, advocacy and communication, strategic partnerships, and of course, let's look at some practical implementation tips as well. So today's session, we hope to equip you with actionable steps to advance in equality, diversity, and inclusion. So as a first step, let me introduce to you today our eminent panel members. And Michael, the Deputy Chair and Diversity and Inclusion Lead for CMI Hong Kong Board. And he comes with an extensive professional experience and a career track record in the fields of publishing and education. He is an entrepreneur who now owns and manages the Oxonia Company, which is a language and educational consultancy with business operations in Hong Kong, as well as the mainland China. We also have with us Monique Young, who is the Diversity and Inclusion Lead for CMI Malaysia Board, and she is the Managing Partner of People Plus Asia Group, which embodies a life dedicated to both corporate excellence and community empowerment. She has a robust career spanning 2 decades in HR leadership across diverse industries, including renowned companies such as Singapore Airlines, McDonald's, and she has also accumulated invaluable experience in APAC and EMEA regions, exposing her to rich cultural diversity. And we have also Woon Teck, Chairman CMI Singapore Board, who is joining us today. And he is a senior advisor of RSM Singapore, and he currently leads the firm's private client service practice. Woon Teck also focuses on serving family enterprises on how to protect, grow, and preserve their wealth when dealing with the complexity of succession, governance, risk management, and family legacy. So a warm welcome to all our panelists and to all of you. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining in from. And of course, we are on an EDI discussion. So ladies first, and I will direct the first question, Monique, to you. And of course, the audience, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box and we will pick them up and try and discuss and provide insights to the extent possible. So Monique, the question to you, and which is the first question of this afternoon, evening, is how do you identify common challenges for EDI? For example, such as resistance to change, resource limitations, or blurred understandings of where responsibility sits. Monique, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kameya, for the question. It's something that kind of resonates really well for me because in the APAC region, it's a little bit different because we have we are so diverse. there are so many, cultural norms with different ethnicity as well. And I think it's the resistance to DEI often stems from cultural norms, hierarchical structures in certain countries in our region, and also in terms of misconceptions of DEI as somewhat a Western concept. So I think some of the challenges that I've faced with in organizations that we want to implement DEI is, number one is resistance to change, where there are deep-rooted traditions that make some employees hesitant to adopt new practices. For instance, when we talk about inclusivity, right, we talk about people to include people from different ethnicity, different preferences. But in terms of their culture norm and hierarchical structures, it's ingrained in them to behave in a different manner. So I think in terms of that, there are certain countries or certain companies where there is a little bit of resistance to change, which has to do with the traditions, the culture, which are deeply rooted in them. And I think the other thing that we have to look into is in terms of organizations that want to kind of implement DEI, because it's also a resource limitations, where DEI can perceived to be something that is costly, and also probably low priority compared to the ever-changing immediate business needs. And I think with the recent executive order that have also kind of skewed that perception and resources to a different direction altogether. And I think the third one is in terms of accountability, right? In terms of DEI in organizations, oftentimes there's also uncertainty over who is responsible for DEI. Is that with HR? Is that with leadership? Is that with individual teams? Well, who would that be? I think in order for us to kind of look into it, there are areas and facets of challenges that organization face. But I think what works in my opinion, in my experience as well, is we have to identify these challenges to be able to know what is stopping us for us to move together. And identifying this one means that we are aware what are some of the challenges, but addressing it for us to move forward to a bigger goal. Yeah, over to you, Kamea.
Thank you very much, Malik, for those insights. So my second question, I'm going to direct it to Wuntek, to you. We've heard about what are the key elements in EDI and questions around or uncertainties around who is responsible for EDI from Monique. Now, we'd like to hear from you what strategies an organization could use to overcome the common forms of resistance to EDI initiatives. And these resistances could be, for example, reluctance to change or concerns around resource allocation, etc. Wuntek, over to you.
No, in my view, I think every organization need a cultural change to make this happen, right? And this will need a combination of strategy, communication, leadership engagement, and culture change, right? So the first thing I believe that for DEI to see results, it has to come from the top. And here we're talking about the board of directors. They are the one that has to demonstrate a leadership commitment to bring DEI practices into the organization. And they serve as the role model. Without them openly supporting EDI and inclusive behavior, you're not going to be able to take off. The second thing is effective communication and education. It is necessary as part of the culture change to explain, right, why the EDI is important and how EDI contributes to innovation, employee engagement, and organizational success. And we have to actually address the misconception using data and storytelling to challenge the myth, right? One of the key concerns that many organization have is the more you talk about the EDI, the more we get down into a path of lower profitability. That's not true. And we got to deal with that by addressing it head on and telling people, no, in a diverse EDI environment, you actually build an inclusive and sustainable growth. And I also believe that we should learn how to start small and scale smart. Right? It's not a big bang approach. Test the initiative, get people engaged, and engage the stakeholders earlier, involving the employees in shaping the EDI strategies so that you get the buy-in, particularly those that has a very traditional views. Engage them early. And I think more importantly, when you engage these people, you have to align the EDI movement to business goals. We have to be able to show how EDI support goals like customer satisfaction, market growth, employee retention, right? And how EDI is not a cost, but a long-term investment, and it is measurable in terms of ROI. Okay. Now, and three other things that I think we have to do. One is to embed EDI into the HR practices, right? It's no point telling people we subscribe to EDI when your recruitment, your performance management, your promotions doesn't look like EDI embracing, right? And then measure the progress and share the results across the whole organization. When you do all this engagement and when you're serious from the top, I think slowly the culture will change and you get a lot more acceptance.
Thank you very much, Khun Tek, and especially for emphasizing that the tone from the top and the actions from the top are essential in terms of really driving EDI as well as seeing the benefits from it and not just seeing it as a mere cost or just another fancy element for an organization to have. So, Michael, for you, my question to you is how can managers and leaders effectively communicate the benefits of EDI? Woon Tek talked about the importance of highlighting the benefits in the ROI versus it just being viewed as a cost. So how do we address this resistance at different levels of the organization and effectively get the benefits communicated?
To me, effective communication means being proactive and also actually being inclusive in a sense that you would like to communicate to everybody, to keep everybody in the know. For example, if you may want to share your policy regarding EDI, you may want to share the measures and your organization's stances, positions about EDI, transparently and openly, and to make sure people are on the same page. And for those who have doubt about it, who resist it, it can be out of many reasons. It can be out of doubts or lack of understanding, and other reasons. I think is actually good. It's the first step to be proactively sharing the what you want people to know about the DI policies and directions. And in Hong Kong, at the university where I'm teaching, actually, I'm also an educator. I think there's something really well done, is that all the policies and everything, the guidelines are publicly shared online. So everybody can access. It's accessible to every levels, every employees, every stakeholders. At the same time, there's also a resource center, physical one, that's dedicated to people who can actually walk into it and be able to look into information and be able to access information. So for eliminating the misunderstanding and just to increasing their own sort of awareness of EDI. And speaking of communication, is also, I think, is not very efficient or effective if people are not they don't take part in it, in a sense that again, I'm going to use the example of university they work at. Students, for example, they are recruited to be inclusion ambassador. I think there's no better way for people to actually to learn about EDI than embodying it themselves. So the students will have to be sent out to engage with different parties in the university, and through their own mouths, they will have to articulate those. Through their own actions, they have to actually embody that EDI concepts and principles. I think that's is a good way of actually sharing and communicating and disseminating the concept of EDI to all levels of within an organization.
Thank you. And could you also take a few moments and elaborate how helping everyone understand the true business benefits of EDI and the importance of being accountable and, of course, being a visible leader in shaping the culture would be important for this agenda? Michael, that's also for you.
All right. And I think in the context of a business organization, I think letting people know about the benefits in terms of how would it worked for the best interest of a and prospect of the company's business will be a motivation for people to start to engage in change, to engage in transformation, and then you can kickstart the process of shaping people's mindset and the culture of the organization. I think is by finding what really motivates the people within the organization. And I believe that culture actually start like Woon Tech mentioned is also is what's important is central. The core of that cultural change would be the senior management, the top management and then you work your way down to different levels of an organization. So I think again, going back to the point being proactive, I think that the senior management can take a central role in this and to lead the way, to help to train the people that they are leading and work towards that common goal of eventually being attaining EDI.
Thank you, Michael. And my next question, Woon Tech, could you shed some light to us in terms of how organizations can ensure accountability in advancing EDI efforts? How can we get this done?
I can share the Singapore experience. You can't wait for organizations to ensure accountability. What you need is an industry movement. So in Singapore, we practice this tripartitism. Tripartitism means the organization, the employer, the labor union, and the government comes together to issue industry-wide guidelines. So one of the things that we have done is we have a tripartite guidelines on fair employment practices. And this is issued to give guidelines to prohibit discrimination based on race, gender, age, religion, marital status, or disability in hiring people. We make it very clear, right? So when you have an industry-wide guidelines like this on fair employment practices, it basically become, it's not law, but it basically become an accepted industry standard, and organizations are forced to embrace this, right? The other thing that we do well, I think, which we can share is we look at how to put in place, and in Singapore in 2021, we introduced this fair consideration framework when we hire people. And this fair consideration framework, when we hire people, particularly foreign talents, we want to make sure that it's really based on merit and skills, nothing else, right? And if you don't follow this fair consideration framework, there are penalties. You can't even get your work passes to bring in more foreign talent, right? And in order to make sure that we create a conducive environment where we uplift the lower income people, we introduce this thing called a progressive wage model. And in a progressive wage model, we now encourage organizations to have a progressive wage model based on skills and competency development so that we can uplift the lower income people to and through skills upgrading, they can earn more. Right? So there's a industry-wide collaboration. Now, at the organization level, I think the board needs to set the tone. And in setting the tone, it has to hold management accountable to unacceptable practices. And this has to be put inside their remunerations and performance appraisal, that any of the senior management that doesn't lead by example and doesn't embrace EDI, their remuneration packages, their promotion will be affected. The other thing that we need to do is have a KPI, have a dashboard, do town hall, tell people, right, how we take this seriously, right? And it is through all this town hall effective communication that we instill accountability. Because when you announce how we have embraced all these changes and how EDI is now part of us, then people take this seriously and they will accept this, right? All this is not an organization effort. It requires the whole of the industry approach in order to see good success and good outcome. Okay, that's my sharing.
Thank you, Untak. So making EDI a part of everything we do, a part of our recruitment process, a part of our performance evaluation, rewards, and rewards process as well, help us make sure that EDI is driven into the culture and embedded into it, and that action takes place. So thank you for sharing that. But we would also like to see and hear about real life examples, cases on how this effective advocacy or leadership has been successfully driven by EDI initiatives. And so, Monique, we reach out to you now for you to share some examples from your organization or even from your personal experience.
Yeah, so thanks so much, Camilla. I think in APAC, where cultural nuances and legal frameworks, vary widely. So I think effective, DEI or EDI advocacy requires, sometimes and most of the time, localized strategies. So we have, companies that, globally headquartered somewhere else, but that has to be tailor-made to the local context and local strategies as well. And that have to be filled with strong leadership accountability. So it's not just something on the wall. It's not just a kind of a document that you read about, but it should be embedded in the culture and in the way of working, and also part of the values of an organization. So I think I want to cite a company I've worked with, kind of like a global and IT leader, IT leader with, headquartered, in the UK. And this is what they did over here in the region, where they have, a global, DI initiative that's headquartered. But at the same time, they allow the local countries and the region to tailor-make these DI initiatives as what is deemed fit to the local cultural norms and the differences, simply because we are quite a diverse group of people. And in terms of DEI, the innate meaning of DEI can vary in terms of country to country as well. So I think in terms of one thing that we did in that organization is linked leadership with the accountability of DEI, where we actually tie their variable pay to the DEI matrices in terms of gender parity, and also inclusivity in terms of underrepresented group, And this has actually shifted the representation of leadership in a woman leadership from a mere 20% up to about 35%, outpacing regional, tech peers. So what it means is that if you put a lot of emphasis and you make the leaders accountable, it will happen, right? The second part is also in terms of cultural adapted programs as well. We have what we call Women in Tech. This organization have this called Women in Tech. What we do is we address local attrition by upskilling women, particularly women, where we actually have mentorship, and we are part of this cohort that we actually allow them to learn about coding, about the tech world, so that they're exposed to it and at the grassroots level, so they can join the organization. The other thing that would we cater kind of for the local country as well is in terms of inclusion for all, right? It's not just that diversity in terms of gender and ethnicity, but we also have people or hiring pipelines for neurodiverse talents as well, and also diverse group of people, not just in terms of certain things that you see, certain things that you don't see as well, in terms of experience and skills, neurodiversity. It goes beyond that as a whole. So inclusivity for all, which means that you start like what Wintex mentioned at the hiring stage, even before we talk about hiring somebody in the organization, and we put a constant or conscious effort to make that happen. I think the third one is in terms of transparent advocacy, where it is made known, and I think in Malaysia as well is the ESG is one of the things that is also needs to be submitted as your annual report if you're a public listed company. So there has been some emphasis in that as well, in terms of sharing what is your diversity or DEI efforts as well, in terms of disclosing of pay gaps, promotion rates, and also transparency in terms of leadership, what is the representation of leadership. And that has actually resulted into, very, much in terms of employer branding. You put yourself out there and people want to work with you because they feel, comfortable. You are an inclusive environment. It's a culture that, embrace differences, and you work with different talents as well. That also gives you a kind of, it fuels you in terms of working with diverse people, and that it's a learning every day. And I think in terms of the result, right, it is, it shows in terms of representation of women at the board, representation of women at leadership level, embracing the diversity of people in the organization, not just gender, but representation. And I guess the point is that in APAC itself, DI succeeds when global framework are localized, and where leaders and are financially accountable for the changes and the measures. And if the progress is transparent, where everybody knows where we're heading for, to, like what Winter mentioned about having a dashboard, well, it proves that advocacy without just accountability is just lip service or PR. Over to you, Kamea.
Thank you very much. And I think my sentiments resonate with those of Chris, who has just added on to the chat as well. We're very appreciative of you emphasizing that diversity, equity, and inclusion just doesn't really only emphasize on gender, and it's not only about ethical backgrounds, that it's also everything that makes each and every one of us different. Where we grew up, what our beliefs are, what we do, what our preferences lie. So it's everything. It's no longer just a conversation on gender, which generally everybody tends to think with inclusion, equity, diversity means gender balance, etc. It's not only that. And thank you very much for reminding us of those aspects as well. So my next question, while the audience is getting ready with their questions, and we welcome them to do so, my next question will go out to Woontek, to you. How do we share the responsibilities of embedding EDI into the heart of the organizations that we work for in order to strengthen the impact that this can bring?
I think it starts from managers. And that's what CMI is about. Right? We as manager must actually walk the talk. And in walking the talk, I think small things matters. We don't joke about gender issues, right? And it's very common where I hear, oh, this driver must be a lady that drive this way, right? I think when you start to make comments like this, unconsciously, it contradicts your public persona about what you believe in, right? Because your daily activities and the way you utter those words already show that subconsciously there is a gender bias, right? So I think every manager will have to listen more and look at how your behavior and what you say and how you go about is coherent with the pursuit for a more inclusive culture. So that's one. The second thing which I find is education is very important, right? Like what we are doing. When you come together and you have people who come and share their insights, and the more we do this kind of awareness and education, the more we are going to be able to encourage the organization to review their practices and make changes. Without the movement like CMI, the industry-wide participation in education, it's very hard for organization to make those changes. The third thing which I find is very important is listen more, don't criticize, and don't actually make comments that actually discourage people to support DEI. If there are organizations that are not up to the standards, then don't lecture them. Engage them positively, get them to recognize the importance of doing this, and then get them to start one or two initiatives. This positivism to actually encourage more DEI practices in the organization has to be done, particularly in the Asian culture. We are more reticent, and if we engage and listen and encourage, don't lecture, we will see better results. Yeah.
Very, very powerful words and thoughts, and thank you for that. It's most definitely true that our actions speak louder than our words, and everything shows at the end of the day in how we react and respond to a particular situation. And yes, we are very, very thankful for CMI for being an advocate of this and for sharing knowledge, thought, and experiences on how we can get this concept right and how we can build it right into our organizations and to our lives as leaders. So my next question, stemming from that, is going to go to you, Michael. How can we practically foster collaboration and share responsibility for EDI initiatives? Everyone in the panel was talking about we need to take responsibility, be accountable. So how do we take the right steps to do this?
Hello, and pardon me for the slow connection here, just for the past moment. Yes, I think that to make sure it, in a collaborative environment where all the parties and parts of the organization come together to collaborate on implementing and promoting EDI. It's important to make sure that there's a sense of accountability, even for everybody, for the senior management team, middle management, or junior staff, the HR, everybody is included. I think it's important to have a mechanism there that is in place in the organization where through this mechanism, there is a way for all the different parties to hold each other accountable, keep each other in check, and also is a way to, maybe there should be a meeting of all these different parties to come together and share updates and communicate their problems they face and issues and to come up with solutions. Most importantly, I think is that where there is diversity, there's always conflicts. So it's important to have also a mechanism where when any member of an organization faces discrimination, any form of exclusion, offense, there's a way for them to voice out and for their case to be reviewed and treated in a fair way, so that we can ensure that everybody of all genders or backgrounds and any kinds of nature, they can feel included. They can feel that they have a share, they have a stake in the organization.
Thanks, Michael. So what Michael is saying is that we need to engage all levels of the organization. So I'm going to direct part of that shared knowledge now to Monique to ask her in terms of how can these different levels of an organization, be it senior leaders, middle managers, HR, junior staff, how can they help to embed EDI at the core of workplace culture? How does this differ between large and small organizations? Would it be different or is it the same? Monique, you're on mute.
All right. So I think there are certain differences and similarities as well in terms of DI partnership between large and smaller companies. So I would like to cite example based on my experience as well, where I've mentioned earlier in terms of large companies is really about scale and systemic influence. So I get to share a few examples where certain organizations have done in terms of how they scale and influence systemically in the organization, where they are an audit firm, citing an audit firm, where they have a global framework, but local impact as well, where they partner with local universities to redesign the curriculum for underrepresented groups and reaching out to many different learners, almost like 500,000 learners. It's about having a global framework, but dissecting it and catering and tailor-making it for the local country that we are in. The other thing that is now more and more are doing is supplier diversity mandates, right? So which means that in terms of global companies such as Walmart, such as Woolworth, such as Sainsbury, and also such as Marks and Spencers, they require suppliers to meet their DI benchmarks, right? In creating a trickle-down effect. So which means that now if their mandate, as a global company is in having a woman representation at a leadership level, that is actually required from the suppliers, to comply and meet. And that actually sees that, a lot of organizations that is partnering with these global companies have to comply and have to increase in terms of the women leadership in the company. So I think it's the supplier diversity mandates, and also there are some examples where they have to follow International Labour Organization standards, which is a mandate. The other thing we want to also mention in terms of large companies is policy advocacy, where they actually fund research, right, with local NGOs, where they kind of shape the underrepresentation group in that specific markets they are in, right? There are companies that say, well, this is something that we believe in. let's look into what we can do with the local NGOs to find out and also partner with them for us to get a bit more representation. So I think in large companies, it's global framework, local impact, supplier diversity, and mandates, as well as policy advocacy. Well, and the flip side, talking about small companies, it's about agility and also it's about niche solutions. So normally, in terms of funding, in terms of the scale, right, it's not comparable to these large organizations. So what they do is they probably have a, let's say, a hyper local pilot program. If they want to, let's say, have an underrepresentation group, what they do is they go in to a small community or an area where they can tap on, let's say, rural schools to train women, and then in terms of, let's say, technology or AI, for them to find opportunities and work with these tech companies. So it's about catering to that and going in. The other thing is also in terms of cultural bridge building as well. There are organizations in Indonesia, for instance, where they connect with minority youth for with the SMEs or small medium enterprises for apprenticeship, right, and addressing religious and ethnicity divides among micro enterprises. So they kind of look into, well, in order for us to be inclusive, we have to break down the barriers. And some organization, what they do is they go and connect with this youth in a minority underrepresented group to reach out to them, to give them opportunity, work with the organization, but at the same time, creating that equal platform for people to excel in the organization. And I think the third one is really about, companies, go in and funding STEM inclusive, programs, with the local schools. And then what they do is they kind of get it from the grassroots level as well, where people kind of understand and know these companies from, younger group. So they can, as a top of mind, they know that this company that is serious about, even, child or school-going kids in the company. So I think in all, in terms of, the large companies and small companies, it's really about, large companies that leverage on policy changes and supply chain, where, and think in terms of, where they can, kind of the matrix they actually can do is actually they have an ESG, reporting compliance that they have to fulfill. But at the same time, for small companies, we talk about cultural nuances and innovation, where it's tailor-made for grassroots impact, and also to create stories for the grassroots to kind of understand that, well, wow, this is a company that I want to work in, I want to be part of, because they reach out to me and they reach out to us as a community, and they remember them for life, right? So I think what I want to say is that it is a lot of effort, from whether or not it's a large or a small organization, but at the same time, I think it's really having that plan on a page and executing it, and making that plan come to life, which is more important. It's not just a phrase on the wall, but it is you're breathing and living that values of DEI.
Thanks, Monique. So just merely having our purpose and our mission on the wall is not enough. We need to actually live, breathe it, and practice it. So thank you for that message. I'm going to throw a question to all our panelists. And of course, have anyone brave enough or anyone volunteering to take up the question. So the question is, so diversity means that we're going to have different perspectives coming in. And how do we balance the need for diverse perspectives with the challenge of managing a global team, a local team, with different cultural and communication styles? How can we balance this aspect of diversity? Over to any panelist who would like to take it.
I can start first. I find it is a work in progress, trying to find a balance. Why? Because we actually will take a while for us to establish a understanding of the cross-cultural traits, and that requires time. Okay, and you can't do that without trial and error, and you can't do that without actually having some conflicts. Sometimes through conflicts we learn together, and uh, and and that's where CMI play a role, where we teach people about how to be more empathy in our approach, and how do we be more constructive in our dealing with cross-cultural traits. And and why I say it's work in progress, because everybody has to put in the effort to try and understand each other better. And the world today is very fragmented because everybody is trying to say that, you need me more and I need you more, right? And once you get into this sort of debate, uh, you're not going to be able to achieve a inclusive leadership, right? So work in progress. Don't give up hope. Let's try. Let's deal with it with conflict, and bring in the CMI values.
Would any other panelists like to add on? Michael?
Oh, yes, sure. Well, the topic of this talk is about inclusive leadership. So I think leadership here should be stressed again. And to me personally, from my perspective, I believe that the leaders, to be true leaders, doesn't mean that you are all the way high up there and directing and dictating things. But I think the leadership can also mean that you are the facilitator and also a gatekeeper, and you can also be a referee in a sense in keeping the organization in harmony, that everybody's voices are being considered and taken into account, and the leadership can engage in listening and also reflecting, and also change when necessary, to make sure that the organization will be able to factor in all the voices and perspective from people from various backgrounds and with different needs. I think that's the leadership there should be, like I said, the gatekeeper, the referee, the facilitator.
And Monique?
Yeah, so I think balancing DI in an organization, I think it takes a balanced and deliberate approach, right? Where we kind of ensuring the initiatives are strategic, right, measurable, and also culturally aligned, without being overly bureaucratic. And I think it's a few things that I want to highlight, and these are the things. We have to integrate DEI into business strategy. It's not just a HR thing. It is a business strategy. It is an organization, thing. It's not just sits with HR. I think that's where when you talk about integration DI into the business strategy, it says about leadership accountability. It's that that we have executives that ties in to the DEI KPIs, and it's not just lip service. And number two is in terms of integration, is also embedding in the operations as well, where we talk about, let's say, including DEI in the procurement process, right? Product development, where we have supplier diversity. We talk about inclusive design. We talk about customer engagement. We talk about not just one piece of the business, but it's everywhere in the business from a macro perspective. That's about integrating DEI into business strategy. The other one is also balancing representation with inclusion as well. Hiring does not mean you have DEI success. Diverse hiring is just the first step, right? In organization where you say, wow, we have this, we hired whatever X number of people in an organization. So what we need to measure is in terms of belonging. How are they feeling? How they engage? What about the equity? What about the pay parity? So I think it's about a more holistic way of looking into not just one piece. And the other thing we want to look into is avoid that tokenism, where we ensure that underrepresented employees have real influence and is not visibility. Because underrepresented employees, they are highlighted and more visible. But it's not just that they have a voice. They can also influence, at the company level or a strategic level, right? And I think the third one is customized for local context. Global, we have global, in terms of framework and directions, but that also needs to be balanced with, regional and local needs as well, where there are certain markets in our region where they are a bit sensitive in terms of LGBTQ plus advocacy. So we have to be sensitive in terms of the market or the country we are in as well, where we need to probably focus on gender and disability versus, LGBTQ plus advocacy. So we have to, look into and tailor-make these programs accordingly to the market. And of course, I think the other thing that we have to look into is measure what matters, right? As much as we have a dashboard, right? Do we track in terms of retention, pay gaps, leadership diversity, right? Do we also do like pulse survey to assess the psychological safety inclusion of the people in the organization? And I think the last one is that as much as everybody talk about DEI, avoid DEI fatigue. Prioritize sustainable actions, right? And I would like to, impart with this, start small, but scale smart. So you don't have to do, massive programs that it's going to, be doomed, but start small. Pilot a program, for mentorship with women, right? Before, we can actually roll out to different bigger programs. Have an employee-led, initiatives as well, where you let teams drive these initiatives instead of a leadership-driven initiatives. And I think that at the end of the day is everything is about communication. You need to communicate how important this is in the organization, not just the progress, but the challenges, and as well as celebrate success along the way. So it is a whole holistic and systemic initiatives that you need to take, but it's something that organization needs to deliberate and also need to be mindful of what are the programs and initiatives that we take for the organization and as a whole. So I pass it to you, Tamia.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to just resonate some of the comments coming into our chat as well. So Christabel says that you've hit the nail on the head, basically by emphasizing the importance of belonging, and that it is truly believed that this is essential in order for thriving in the workplace. So thank you very much for sharing your insight. I'm going to now direct our panelists to some of the questions that have been pre-submitted. And the first question is around how to drive EDI in Malaysia. So Monique, I'm going to direct that question to you once again.
Okay. To me, it's very simple. Start with the why. Why are we doing this? Is this just a tick in the box? Is this a stock exchange requirement? Start with the why. Why are we doing this? Understand the why. It will lead us to where you want to head to. And understanding the why as well will also tailor-make some of these initiatives or program for us to know which direction to take. DEI by itself, it's a huge topic. Huge, right? We can talk about diversity. We can talk about equality. We can talk about inclusion. What area are we going to look into as well? My take is that start with the why. Why are we doing this in the organization? What are we striving for? What are we trying to achieve? And with understanding of these objectives and the why, then we know what are the small steps to take, right, for us to achieve it. And I think the most important part is that, it is not a function or department initiative. It's an organization initiative where everybody has to be on board and understand where we're heading to in that DI space. So yeah, in a nutshell, Tamia, start with the why and take small steps along the way to achieve bigger goals.
Thank you. Always good to go to the root cause and find out the why. So thank you very much for that piece of advice. And I'm going to direct the next question, Wuntek, to you. And that is coming around the lines of that they would like to know how to establish an EDI alliance.
Okay, to do that, first you must have a common objective. And to me, to get a DEI alliance, we have to align that to the business goals, and the business must be able to operate, survive, make profit. Then people will see the need to protect the profitability by coming together to do a DEI, right? One good example is many industries are facing disruption, cannot find people, cannot retain people. And as a result of this, their performance and growth strategy is delayed. And that is a starting point to get people to look at DEI. Why? Because if everyone is suffering from retention, then we should come together to form an alliance to look at how to put in place a code of practice to put DEI into the organization and work on how to retain people. So by doing that, there's a common goal, common objective, and I'm sure there will be like-minded people coming together to form an alliance. You don't need the government to start this. So I think we have a connection problem. Kamala is temporarily out. Yeah.
Okay.
Give it a minute.
Give her a minute.
Yeah.
So while she's taking her time to kind of get the tech sorted out, maybe Michael, if there's anything to add from your side.
Well, I would love actually to hear from the audience today. We would love to encourage people, if you're listening now, seeing us, what do you think of our sharing? Is there anything you'd like to share from your country or regions? I think we should encourage people to type your answers. Just be actively typing answers in the comment boxes and let us know so we can take this time to do a Q&A with all of you. I think we should make this more interactive. So let's see. So please feel free. We're waiting for your input here from everybody who are with us within the CMI community or everywhere else in the world, wherever you are. I think this is let's be inclusive in that way also.
So I think in the interest of time and, while we're waiting for Tamia to, come up again, maybe, Wuntek and Michael as well, you can provide some practical actions or, key takeaways for us to take back, and also for the audience to take back from this session as well in terms of DEI. So what are some of the practical actions that a leader or manager can take in this DEI space? Probably
I feel very strongly that you start from ourselves first. Take the small steps to engage in this sort of discussion with the key stakeholders. Even though you may not be in a top position, but it's good to have a conversation with your bosses and your board of directors, right, on what you think on certain improvements in our DEI practices. I think when you make this kind of small steps, conversation, closed door, you get acceptance. And when you get acceptance, right, the top leadership will make changes slowly, right? And don't be in a hurry to make a big bang. Always listen. Always be more empathetic. Don't criticize if you are in an organization that is not ideal, but look at how to give constructive feedback in small ways to effect a change. That is being very practical.
Okay.
Right?
And yourself, Michael, any practical actions for the managers to take?
Yes, I think my final remarks and advice about what leaders can do is that first of all, be proactive, be patient, and definitely be inclusive. And by being inclusive, it means that sometimes you have to include people who may be in resistance, people who may be in opposition to what you're doing. But inclusive is for all. So I think you have to actively listen to why people do not agree, and their voice is so important too. And together, I think this is important for everybody to be collective and collaborative in the efforts towards achieving EDI.
Okay, and I think for me, as practical actions, I think at the end of the day, all these initiatives, DI is change, right? And I think for leaders or managers ourselves, we must act as a role model while empowering every employee or every team member that we have to drive that change. We have to ensure we ourselves walk the talk, right, and create that inclusivity for the team members as well. And it's not just lip service. If our direction is to make sure, to ensure that women representation is of such, make sure our team have that representation, right? And we walk the talk, and we become the role model, which we then cascade that to the to our team members and also the organization, right? I think one of the things I want to bring up is that leaders talk last, but they lead in the front. Thanks. I'll pass it over to you, Camilla.
Thank you very much to our incredible panelists for sharing such valuable insights today. And of course, I can say that it is very clear that inclusive leadership isn't just about creating more diverse teams or diverse organizations merely, but it's about fostering an environment where everyone, regardless of their background, feels empowered and ready to contribute and thrive. And for us leaders, it's not just lip service, as Monique keeps emphasizing. It's all about walking the talk. And we can do that by embracing inclusivity ourselves and not only unlock global talent by doing so, but also set the foundation for a stronger, more innovative and resilient organization. So thank you once again to our esteemed panel and to everyone who joined us this evening. And of course, we cannot forget CMI for being the advocate for such knowledge disseminating sessions. And let us continue pushing the boundaries of what's possible with inclusive leadership. And on that note, I hand it back to Samantha. Over to you. Thank you.
All right, so that's it for today's session. Thank you to Woon Tak, Michael, Monique, and Camilla for your insight and expertise. Please stay tuned to hear more about CMI membership, and thank you for joining us.
Don't forget, as a CMI member, you can find the latest management and leadership insights at managers.org.uk. If you're not yet a member, join our community to discover CMI Confidence with on-demand resources, our network of mentors, and industry-leading accreditations.